Hi, Saj Hussain here, and in this video I want to talk about how you can purchase property using none of your own money. Yes, you heard me right, using none of your own money. It's absolutely possible and something that I do regularly. However, there's many different ways this can be done. There are some that are a bit questionable in terms of tactics that people use and strategies, but for me it's really important that we're doing what's legal, what's correct and what's safe. So let's talk about two ways we can do that in this video. It's just a quick video. So let's use an example property. Let's talk about a property. Let's say it's £100,000. You found an opportunity where you can purchase a property for £100,000 that you need, and you also need some money to renovate it, to add some value, to make it worth more than what it might be right now. So you need £100,000 to purchase. I'm sure you've heard bridges and private lenders. There'll be lots of people that'll be quite happy to lend on a project, particularly bridges. If the deal is right, they'll typically lend you about 70% of the purchase price. In some cases, it might be more than that. So let's say a bridger agrees to give you £70,000 and then you need another £30,000 for the renovation. By the way, if you're thinking about are you going to be able to meet the criteria to get bridging, let's say there's a great friend of mine who provides bridging finance, says it's two simple criteria. As long as you're breathing and you're not bankrupt, then you can get bridging. It's that simple. Bridges are really private individuals that are using their money, family money, to lend out for short-term projects, generally within a year, where they can cycle their money and get it back. So let's assume you're going to be able to get bridging at 70% of the purchase price. In this case, £70,000. You'll need another £30,000 for the balance or the deposit. There'll be many private investors that you can get that money from. I'm going to talk about that in another video in terms of having suitable private investors for your funds. But if the deal's right, you can borrow £30,000 from a private investor. And let's say you'll need a little bit more for renovation, let's say another £20,000 or so to cover other costs, purchase costs, a little bit of work on the property, and also things like stamp duty as well. So you've got £50,000 from a private investor, £70,000 from a bridging company. So in total, you've got there £120,000. That's enough to purchase a property at 100, 20 for costs and renovation. So total spend £120,000. Now let's say you've added about £50,000 of value. I mean, that's not always possible, but for the purpose of this explanation, let's say you add £50,000 of value. Now you've got a property that's worth £170,000. If you simply sell and walk away with gross profit of £50,000, you've still got the interest that you'll need to pay your investors or a profit share, depending on how you structure it. You've got your bridger to pay back their money with their interest as well. So you'll still walk away with a nice profit, and really you haven't used any of your own money to do that deal. £70,000 come from the bridger, £50,000 come from a private investor that's funded that deal for you. So that's one simple way you might be able to do that deal. Now, if you were keeping the property, you're looking for to remortgage that property. Let's say you take a 75% mortgage, that will probably, at £170,000, that will probably release you enough money to pay back the bridger, the private funds you borrowed, and some of the interest and costs. You might be left with a little bit of money that you'll need to pay yourself as well, depending on the rates and the terms that you've agreed. But pretty much you could end up with a property with none of your own money that you've repaid now back, and you've got a traditional mortgage on that property. The other way to do that, it might be you're just selling the property and you walk away with a profit. So that's one method. A second method may be you might be thinking, well, actually, I'm not going to be able to get £50,000 from a private investor. I haven't got access to those kinds of cash there's nobody that lend me that kind of cash. But there might be friends or family that like to help you that may be cash poor but asset rich. So what I mean by that? Well, it might be that they own a property or properties that have very little debt against them. So they have a large amount of equity. They may not necessarily want to sell those to release the money. They may not want to remortgage those to release money, but there's security that can be used in those properties, equity that can be used as security. So you can have £70,000 from your bridge, as we talked about before, but you could actually borrow another £50,000 using that security to raise the rest of the money. So now you've got your total £120,000 in that situation. So I hope this stuff is making sense. If not, kind of just comment in, I'll try and explain it a little bit better or come back to you individually. But essentially now, if you're in a position where you've got the property that's got the right deal, you've got £70,000 from a bridger for the purchase, you've actually got another £50,000 as a top up using a different property as security at somebody else's. It doesn't even have to be one that you own. Somebody's prepared to work with you and trusts you and supports you in that. So just two simple ways where you can purchase property using none of your own money. Something I've been doing for a long time and still continue to do right now in terms of other people's money. My preference tends to be all of the funds come from private individuals, and that's how I tend to fund my deals. So, you know, on that note, if you're somebody that's got, say, more than £50,000 that you'd be interested in getting involved with me on a project in, let's have a chat. I tend to say at least £50,000, so it's a reasonable amount of money to get involved. Could be significantly more. Send me a message, we can have a chat about how that could work and how we can work together. That tends to be the way I work. I purchase the properties outright using private investors' cash up front at the beginning and for the renovation, and then depending on whether we're keeping it, flipping it, on remortgaging, or, you know, whatever it is that we're going to do. So I hope that kind of made sense. It was just off the cuff, quick few minutes to share with you about purchasing property using none of your own money. Let me know what your thoughts are. If there's any questions, pop them into the comments box below and I'll come back to you as soon as I can. So until the next time and the next video, thanks so much for watching.